Hi, this is Evelyn Lopez. Welcome to Sustainability in Your Ear, the Earth911.com podcast for the week of October 7th, 2019. Coming to you, as always, from the beautiful Moonyard Studio in Tacoma, Washington.
Moonyard.
So today we've got so many questions. What's in your sprays? What's in your water? And what could be in your garden? So many questions. So, you're going to get the scoop on hydrofluorocarbon propellants, especially in personal care products. We will also be talking about some gardening essentials, and we're going to talk about what's in your drinking water and whether it's safe. Plus, as always, Earthling Questions. So, welcome. Hey, Mitch, our Earth911 publisher, where are you at today?
Well, I'm in my home office in Lakewood, Washington, and it's a bright, sunny, cold fall day here in the Northwest.
It is. And Earth911 writer, Sarah Lozanova. Sarah, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Evelyn.
Good. How are things in Maine?
It's kind of rainy and dreary. It's kind of like the weather you would expect in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. So let me just ask, have you had like a warmish fall, or are you straight into like cold sweater jacket fall?
I guess I'd say it's about an average fall. It's been kind of middle of the road. We had a few really warm days for us, and we've had some weather in the 50s. It's probably getting down into the 40s at night.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of a cold fall for us, and we've had some snow in the mountains already. Mount Rainier is covered in snow. That seems a little bit perversely early.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll take it.
It shouldn't be that way yet. But anyway, let's get to our stories. Hydrofluorocarbons.
Yes, indeed. Hydrofluorocarbons. It's something that we've been doing research on what's in our various products. And we were surprised to find hydrofluorocarbons in a lot of personal care products, everything from deodorants and body sprays to WD-40. And in one case, one product that does nothing but project hydrofluorocarbons, a toilet plunger that you stick in and then force the water through your toilet. Why are we concerned about hydrofluorocarbons? That, of course, is the question. You may remember that chlorofluorocarbons were what we used across a number of industries to propel things out of containers back in the 80s. And that was the time when we discovered that chlorofluorocarbons were really damaging the ozone layer of the Earth. It opened up a many hundreds of thousands of miles hole over the South Pole, and because of the Montreal Protocol, one of the first UN global climate agreements, we actually reversed that damage, and we project that by 2060 we will have healed the ozone layer, which will mean that we're no longer allowing electromagnetic radiation into the atmosphere, which can cause, amongst other things, skin cancer and cataracts. Now, of course, back in the 80s, one of the reasons that went through is that President Reagan got skin cancer, and he recognized the relationship between his skin cancer and the increased exposure to unfiltered sunlight as being potentially hazardous. So, fortunately, there was a lot of support. We got the Montreal Protocol signed.
Well, and this is something that I found really interesting we've got a story on the website, Hydrofluorocarbons, the supergreenhouse-gas in your kitchen and bathroom. And, I realized that I have been, I don't purchase a lot of products with propellants anyway. I just don't like spray stuff because it gets in the air. But I feel really stupid and naive because I knew about the chlorofluorocarbons and the hole in the ozone, and I just thought that since, for a while you really didn't see a lot of propellant-type sprays.
Right.
And then when they came back, I thought, oh, isn't that clever? They must have come up with some solution that is better. So they kind of fixed that.
And it technically is better in some ways, but it is not better all across the board. And, of course, we emphasized what was better, which is that it doesn't damage the high-altitude ozone. But what hydrofluorocarbons do is increase ground-level pollution. It does affect the ozone layer in a very small way compared, but at the ground level, it actually increases smog and pollutants. And what happened was the industry switched over the course of time from some actually environmentally friendly approaches using compressed air and things, and moving from sprays to sticks in the case of antiperspirants, for instance. But what happened is hydrofluorocarbons sort of crept back in. In fact, they're illegal in Europe. But here in the United States, we discovered 300 products that have hydrofluorocarbons in it. And as I said, one of them is just pure hydrofluorocarbon, which is many times more impactful on the environment than CO2. In fact, it can be as high as 14,000 times more impactful than regular CO2. So it's a bad thing that we have allowed to sneak back into products in the United States. We reached out to the United Nations Clean Air Organization, and they were surprised that they were even in use in the United States. So we pointed that out to them, and they're looking into it as well. But if you go check out the story on the site, which is hydrofluorocarbons, the super greenhouse gas in your kitchen and bathroom, you'll find a link to the list of all the products and a summary of what many of the products include. And in particular, if you're looking for something, looking for this ingredient, look for HFC 152A. HFC 152A is the form of hydrofluorocarbon that has been adopted by all of these American companies. And if we continue to use these at the level that we do today, they will account for between 7 and 19% of all greenhouse gases by 2050. And that would add at least another half to 3/4 of a degree Celsius to the global temperature at that time. So it's important that we start to reverse this. There is a new UN treaty, the Kagala. Oops, I've lost my notes. It was signed in Kagala, and so it's an extension of the Montreal Protocol that bans hydrofluorocarbons. And hopefully that'll come into effect and push this out in the United States. But the first thing we can do as consumers is find this stuff, HFC 152A, and just not buy it. Yeah,
that is good advice. You know, I tend to go for the spray pumps anyway because I feel you can sort of control it a little bit more. You don't use as much product, but I am definitely going to keep my eye open for that ingredient because that's a what's in your products that is probably something you do not want to have in your house if you can avoid it.
Yeah, and again, the folks at the UN said, using HFCs for aerosol hairsprays is 100% unnecessary use. It's proven by the fact it was largely eliminated with not-in-kind alternatives during the 80s.
Yeah.
There literally are perfectly safe ways to do this that can replace hydrofluorocarbons. Yeah, so ask the companies that you want to continue to use their products to get rid of this stuff and use something that's responsible.
Definitely. So that's what's in your sprays that is not good. But let's talk about what you can get into your garden that is good. And we'll start with a story, one of Sarah's stories on landscaping techniques to cut home energy use. Sarah, tell us about some ideas of what we can do with our landscapes.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be done, Evelyn. And what I would suggest is that people first consider their climate zone. Some of us live in heating-dominated climates like myself. Like if you live in Maine, you're definitely in a heating-dominated climate. And then other folks like in the South or the Southwest, it's much more a cooling-dominated climate. So you want to kind of cater these suggestions to your climate. But one thing that I've done up here is to plant a windbreak on the west side of my home of trees because the prevailing winds come from the west, and they can be quite strong, especially in the winter.
So you use that essentially as a second layer of a barrier against the wind so that even when it reaches your house, it's already slowed down.
Exactly. And it actually makes it more comfortable. Unfortunately, the trees haven't really grown up yet, so it hasn't been that effective, but it will make it more comfortable, too, because even just spending time outside in the yard, it's less windy, too. But yeah, just to buffer that wind.
And I found your article really interesting in a couple of ways too, because you talked about the fact that the trees themselves can become both summer and winter tools for managing the heat of their house. Can you talk about which is better, coniferous or deciduous trees?
It depends what you're trying to achieve. So that's one thing that's nice about deciduous trees is they do lose their leaves. So, for example, I could plant some deciduous trees on the south side of my home, and then in the winter, the trees will lose their leaves, so it'll create less shade. It's basically in the winter you want the warming effect of the sun, and in the summer you don't, which corresponds with when the trees have leaves, which is convenient. But coniferous trees, in general, I think are better at stopping winds. So, like for example, if I were to plant a windbreak next to my home and it was all deciduous trees, I just don't think it would really do that much. You know, you like that the shape of them and.
Well, but to your point earlier, you've got the windbreak on the west side of your house. If you had deciduous trees to the south, that would allow sunlight in during the winter, so that the inside can both be warmer and brighter. And the windbreak is still functioning as a conifers to block the wind. So you can use a mix of these things too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It does get a little tricky though sometimes because, like, for example, if I plant trees too close to my home, then I won't be getting the afternoon sun coming in, which does have a pretty warming effect too. So a little bit of it is kind of a balancing act, or to have the trees far enough away, or definitely on the north side if you get prevailing winds from the north. In my case, I think they just come from the due west. So
it's like wind and light feng shui.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. And then some of the tactics are almost opposite in warmer climates. Like, for example, if you don't use air conditioning, you can try to funnel the winds towards your home if you live in a hot climate, because then that helps naturally ventilate. So that's one of the things that makes it feel hotter than it actually is. Like if the air in your home is really stagnant, then you'll just feel warmer. So you can actually create like a funnel shape with foliage towards your home to try to, from the prevailing winds towards your home to increase that ventilation.
So if you're gonna make an assessment of your house, how would you, if you walk outside, what are you looking for? You're looking for where the sun is, the direction the wind is coming from, and what's currently in your yard and the shape of your house? Yeah,
I would say that sums it up pretty well. And like you said, you do want daylight, especially in the winter. Probably if you're in the Northwest, you don't want to be in a really dreary house. So that's kind of a secondary consideration too, is that's another way to save a little bit of energy, but also just to have your home, brighter and more cheery.
Yeah, I think that's an important consideration. I know when we bought our house about 20 years ago, and I rejected a few neighborhoods because they were too shady. And I thought, in the wintertime, and with, fir trees. So I just thought in the wintertime, that's going to be too dark.
Yeah, the last home that I lived in Wisconsin, it was very dark. And part of it was because we just had these beautiful oak trees. So I'm not exactly complaining, but inside it made the house much darker.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Very.
Oh, so you can think indoors and outdoors to manage the temperature and light indoors. And it's something I think a lot of people are going to become more aware of as we embrace the challenges of being efficient with the world. And it was a great article, so I hope folks will check that out.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so, too. I thought that was really interesting. And I agree with you, Mitch. I thought the deciduous trees, I thought, oh, that's really clever, that they lose their leaves so the light gets through just when you need it in the wintertime.
Now, we also, Sarah, you had another guide for us on how to mulch healthfully. Let's talk about what to put in the ground, especially since it's fall and it's the perfect time to be doing this.
Yeah, this is a good time to be mulching, Mitch. I often will put, since I live in a coastal area, you can harvest seaweed, and sometimes I'll put that on my beds. Leaf mulch is a great one, especially if some people will just use whole leaves. Or you might also be able to get kind of like a composted leaf mixture. Like my local cemetery gives it out for free because they have so much of it. You can also use compost, bark, wood chips, grass.
What are some of the materials you shouldn't use, even though people encourage you to use it?
I would encourage people to be careful of things that won't break down well. You know, like for example, I've used cardboard in my yard and then not been really diligent about taking off the labels. And so then I end up with little pieces of tape all around my yard. You know, so then that's just, you basically have plastics breaking down in your yard. That's not very ideal. I think some of the paper products can have inks that you might not want, especially if it's around food crops. I've gotten straw bales before that seem to have a lot of seeds in them. Like some of the things that you might mulch with could have some seeds in it that would be kind of counterproductive because then you're intentionally planting weeds, you know.
How about beauty bark? Is that actually something you should use as a mulch, or is it so treated that it isn't actually going to be useful for your soil?
I guess it depends what's in it specifically, but I tend to shy away from those products. Even some wood chips too, if they're made out of coniferous trees, can be quite so that's another thing to be careful about is wood chips and making your soil too acidic. And some of these things vary by where you are. Like in Maine, we already have acidic soil, so you don't want to just make it super acidic, but that might be less of a consideration in some areas.
Yeah, I know that if you use beauty bark, it's quite good around your rhododendrons, or at least in my experience, but it doesn't work too well for me around hydrangeas, and I think that's because of the acidity of it.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But basically the concept behind mulching is that, well, for one, it builds up organic matter in the soil, but that helps your soil hold moisture better.
Right.
So it helps to save on the water that, you know, on irrigating. And it also is a good way just to keep adding nutrients back into the soil.
Well, it looks nice too, usually. I mean, I think it looks like your garden is kind of put together or put to sleep for the winter if all of the beds are tidied up and mulched.
Tucked in. Tucked in
For the winter.
It's like insulation, you know, putting a blanket on it.
It's nice.
Well, thanks. That's good to know, and it is the right time of the year. So a lot of folks just put the garden aside right around now, and now is the best time to do some preparation for 2020. So let's all get out there and do it.
Yeah. So those are two stories I would, in my category of what's in it is a good thing. So put some thought into your trees and also put some mulch in your yard. And then we're going to round out with our last what's in it may not be so good, and that is talking about water. And we have a good article on the website, Is My Water Safe to Drink? And it looks like the answer is maybe not.
Not always.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, 63 million Americans don't have clean water. They drink contaminated water. And what I thought was also interesting, the 1.6 million Americans don't even have running water or indoor plumbing. Which
That's a shocker, isn't it?
is astonishing. But the U.S. or the American Society of Civil Engineers, when they looked at the infrastructure for water in the United States and other countries, gave us a D. And the best score any state got was a C+. So we're not talking about a highly functioning water infrastructure in the United States right now. The reason this happens is a variety of reasons. Industrial pollution, agricultural pollution, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are using an infrastructure that was designed before people recognized the harm lead does to the human brain. And so many schools, many institutional buildings that were even built as late as the early 1980s still have lead plumbing. In fact, the high school where my wife teaches, you cannot drink the water out of the water fountain because it's got lead in it. And this is increasingly common because we're running through the lifespan of the water infrastructure that we built in the early 1900s.
Yeah, this was an interesting article, and I feel a little bad because I'm always bragging about how good our tap water is. And Washington State got a C+ on the
highest score.
No, it didn't. It got a C.
I was just going to say that. It's higher than Maine.
No, it didn't get. It did get a little higher than Maine, but it didn't get a C+. It got a C. I just opened it up again.
Oh.
I didn't find the state that got a C+. I think Maine has a C-. But I don't know if this is necessarily. I think this is something to be concerned about, but I think they're talking more about the danger of your infrastructure rather than necessarily the quality of your individual water. So I'm still going to believe that I have great water.
You could run clean water through lead pipe, and then it's contaminated.
Sure.
And that's the problem. So, we may have clean water sources all over the United States. How we get that water from where it is to the faucet becomes the infection.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of other things to look at. If you're looking at, if you're using a well, for instance, is there runoff from farms nearby? Is there heavy metal seeping into the ground, say from a nearby construction or industrial site that is contaminating your water? There's all sorts of reasons to test and think about the water that you're drinking.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times when you can go and check with your water utility and get a report on what the quality of the water is, but that's at the facility. It still doesn't deal with what happened between the facility and where you started drinking that water.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting article. It walks you through how to find out where your water or what your water quality is, and with the EPA's website, and talks through the testing that can be involved. But really, one of the things that you can do to find out the most about your particular situation is look into how your home or the building that you live in was built and whether or not it used lead plumbing.
Yeah. I think you can get individual household test kits for testing if you've got lead in your water.
You can. We have done it here at our house.
Have you?
It's simple and easy. It takes about 15 minutes, including the cleanup. And we didn't find any, but then I know down the street at the school there is a lead pipe, and therefore that same water is coming out contaminated with lead.
Yeah.
Some of the good news, though, is that lead can be fairly easily filtered out of tap water. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean that everyone should switch to bottled water.
No.
Getting a filter might be a great solution.
And we've got several articles on sustainable water filters, which is the other problem with water filters. A lot of them come in plastic components that then don't break down, so you're just littering there too. But there are several strategies that involve using charcoal, and there are there are an emerging set of compostable water filters coming out that we've featured as well. So if you search on water filters on Earth911, you'll get a lot of information.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I can recall, Sarah, you did an article that had some of the nice countertop water filters that were made from glass and stainless steel. And I did think at the time, I should probably look at that, although I need a little counter space to do that, I think. But maybe I'll relook at it. Maybe I should test my water. Now I'm getting paranoid. Uh-oh.
Testing is nice because then you just know what's in it. We have a well here, and we get it tested, and so we just know what there is and know if we need to worry. Another thing I wanted to say is that boiling water does not remove lead.
Okay.
It actually increases the concentration of lead.
Does it?
Is that because of evaporation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, this is a lot.
Water does probably is kill bacteria.
Yeah, this is a lot to think about. But good things. Okay, so that's our last what's in it. What's in your water you might want to find out.
Let me just mention a couple of interviews that we've got coming up.
Yeah, tell us about that
as well. Check out Joe Pickard's interview last week. He's the chief economist at the industries at ISRI, the Institute for Scrap Recycling Industries in Washington, D.C., and we talked through the economic impact of recycling and the fact that despite all of the changes in export, the recycling industry grew last year, both in terms of the volume of stuff that it handled and the number of jobs. Jobs are up about 5.5% from 2017. So it's a fascinating interview about the background decisions that are going on to try to make the system more efficient. And then another really interesting discussion we had is with John O'Wiley, who's the head of sustainability at Right Water. And Right Water is a company that has launched a completely plastic-free water product. It's in aluminum cans that are BPA-free. So they're using a water-soluble sealant to keep the water from the aluminum inside the can. They're using 100% recycled materials, and anything that they use in the plastic categories is bioplastic that will that can be composted and break down. And they're also interested in even eliminating those plastics or finding a way to recapture all of them. So this is a company that just dedicated itself to delivering a premium water with a completely plastic-free, safe, recyclable can, and they're giving about 10% of their revenue or their profits to water programs for Drop for Drop, which is a global water access program. So both really interesting interviews, and if you're looking for a company that's doing the right thing, Right Water is certainly someone to check out.
Yeah, what's their service area? What areas do they cover?
You can order this online.
Oh, okay.
So you can get it at drinkrightwater.com. And then they're also they've only launched a few months ago, but you can order it anywhere. They will be getting into stores as you can actually help. They've got a way for you to make a request to your retailer, and apparently a lot of water or gyms and private clubs are buying the water as a sustainable alternative. So it's the kind of thing that you don't stop and think, gee, we could make all this polluting material into something completely recyclable.
Right.
They've done it.
Right. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I will definitely check that out. One of the things that I need to do this month is take a look at my earthquake preparedness. And and I don't have water stored up. I kind of take it for granted because I've got rain barrels outside my house, but I could do a little bit better.
Well, and the rain barrels outside your house here with some of the manufacturing we have in the area may not be the safest water.
Oh, no, I think that's emergency water. That's like you're going to die water. Yeah.
I'm going to die. I'll drink this water.
I'm going to die. I can drink this. Yeah. Emergency at its most literal. Yes.
Having lived through a major earthquake, I know it's important to prepare and have the water, but don't ever get to the point where you have to drink the water that'll kill you.
Well, it just depends. Kill you fast or kill you slow. If we get down to that choice, I know which I'm choosing.
So let's do Facebook questions from Facebook.
All right. Valerie on Facebook asks, just checking if you know of anyone who recycles plastic gift cards.
Well, so this is it's actually a question that we needed to clarify. At first, we were thinking that we were talking about plastic-coated gift cards, but in fact, this is plastic gift cards like
credit cards, right? Yeah.
And so plastic-coated cards are not recyclable. If you go out to buy a greeting card and there's a plastic cover on it, that's not going to be recyclable, so don't buy it. And just to answer that question, in case that's what Valerie was asking about. But we believe that what she's talking about are the gift cards, of which 2 billion are purchased each year in the United States. Wow. And unfortunately, it's made from a recyclable material that very few curbside programs will accept, and that's PVC, the same stuff that pipes and other things are made of. It's infinitely recyclable, but unfortunately, curbside programs generally don't take PVC plastics. They take plastic 1, 2, and 3, and that's about it. So what you need to look for is whether or not your curbside will take those cards as a first choice. The second thing to look for is a mail-in program. TerraCycle has a program where you can get a box, fill it with cards, and then send it in. But the really interesting and emerging opportunity to be more sustainable is to get compostable gift cards. And so there are a number of companies now that are like Aveda, Chipotle, LL Bean, and Walmart even are using corn-based biodegradable cards made by a company called NatureWorks. Huh. And so look around for biodegradable gift cards before you purchase. A lot of the times you can find these things at Whole Foods, so that would be a place to check. If you can't get biodegradable cards that can be composted at the end of life, and you still have that PVC plastic. The other thing to look for are an emerging category of drop-off locations, and they'll be in retail stores that sell those gift cards. They'll have a drop box somewhere near the rack of cards in many cases. This is a movement that's only beginning, but encourage any retailer that you run across who has these cards for sale to add a way to recycle it right there in the store.
Well, those are really good points. I guess, too, the other thing would be, think about if you're looking at getting a gift card for someone, consider whether an online gift card might work. Because
absolutely, and as you now, there's a catch there.
Oh, okay.
If your online gift card uses a lot of dirty power, and if you don't factor in the economic or the environmental impact of your computer or your phone and all that, there's a little residue of all that pollution in every electronic transaction. So, buying a phone is not always a sustainable choice.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I think that for that one, though, my reaction would be, but I'm probably going to be using my computer regardless. So it's sort of an ongoing, yes, there's definitely energy usage. There may be, some pollution attached to it. But if it's sort of like, things that I need to have now to survive, and I would put my computer in that category now.
Just like rainwater.
Mm-hmm, just like rainwater.
Yeah, well, and that's a great point and a perfectly practical one. But we should be aware of the fact that even when we're doing electronic, there are ways to even lower the footprint more by making sure that the card provider is using a green source of energy.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. I think that's very fair.
And given our conversation today about Bitcoin and its environmental impact, this is the kind of new thinking that we've got to layer into what we take for granted when we think about the impact of stuff today. Mm-hmm. We're just beginning to see into all the things that contribute to pollution.
All the things. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So Amy on Facebook asks, she says, I have a lot of mostly new or hardly used perfumes. I am not sure what to do with them.
So what do you think, Evelyn? I mean, I have very few perfumes.
Yeah, I have some, but and some I actually really like, but I've found that increasingly over the years, more and more people seem to be sensitive to scents, and so I don't really wear perfume. But, like if I use hairspray, it's got some scent in it, so I'm certainly not scent-free, but I've stopped using perfumes. Now, I'll tell you, most of them tend to just sort of dry up over time, and then you've got a glass bottle, to rinse out and get rid of. But I think that your regular perfumes, even if you had a full bottle, you could contact your local transfer station and find out how they would prefer you to deliver them, if they want you to empty the perfume out or deliver the whole thing to them.
Yeah, and because the perfume is a scent and alcohol, unless it's using a propellant like hydrofluorocarbon, it's recyclable. It may need to go through the transfer station. Generally, you would not be able to put this in a curbside program bin, but you could take it to the transfer station, and they will have a way to deal with it. The other way to go about this is, as you described, is to empty the material. It is, unless it contains chemical stabilizers, and most don't, you can pour it out and flush it because it is just alcohol and scent.
Yeah, most perfumes are pretty safe. I mean, they're meant to go on your skin, so they're they're usually pretty benign.
There is another option if you're looking to try to turn some of those cosmetics you bought over the course of time into cash.
Well, do tell.
We do have a article on called "Earn Cash from Your Cosmetics" on Earth911, and it links to a number of programs that will actually pay you for your mostly unused perfumes and makeup.
Yeah, that would be particularly good, I think, for Amy, since she's got some that are new. You might be able to resell them. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and this one, the last question, I think, is the hardest one, but also in some ways the most interesting. Ed from New Jersey asks, we have 3 hybrid lithium batteries from 3 hybrid cars and can't find anyone to take them. One company will only take them if there is 1,000 pounds, and we only have about 600 pounds.
So this is, and as we talked about, there are always new materials coming onto the market that are going to need to be recycled at some point. And as hybrid and electric cars have been on the market for a few years, some of them are now needing to be recycled, and particularly these large lithium-ion batteries, which generally are sitting under the driver and the passengers. They're part of the flooring of these vehicles.
How big are they? I mean, I'm guessing that if he's got 3 of them and he's got 600 pounds, they're about 200 pounds apiece. I mean, how big is it?
And they may be even more in a purely electrical vehicle. A hybrid battery is going to be smaller because it's serving a different purpose. It's storing up power from the engine when it's that isn't being expended on driving, and then using it to drive the car later. So they're going to tend to weigh a little less. In a fully electric vehicle, the battery could weigh up to 1,200 pounds, I understand.
Wow.
Which also, for instance, in the Tesla, where they've put all that weight right under the driver, makes the car really stable.
Yeah.
So there are benefits to it. Now, you can't take these in and have them recycled. However, you can in the case of some electric vehicles come with a battery replacement warranty, and when they take the battery out, they'll process it responsibly. I know that with my BMW i3 that I can do that. But in this case, what Ed needs to do is find a hauler that will take less than 1,000 pounds. And that may involve paying that hauler. I think because these materials are pretty valuable, both the lithium and the metal with which these batteries are made, generally aluminum, that there's plenty of value there that would justify a recycler coming out to pick it up. So check the Earth911 search database, starting with car battery recyclers, and then call those battery recyclers to see if they'll take the hybrid battery itself. What we will be doing is adding new materials to the Earth911 database, and we're in the midst of doing all the back-end database work to start to do that. So we're looking at later this winter to launch a completely new set of categories, and certainly batteries, both hybrid batteries and EV batteries, will be categories in the new database.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it strikes me too. If I was Ed, I might put out a little note on Nextdoor or somewhere on social media asking if any of his neighbors have batteries, and see if he can get to 1,000 pounds. Well,
and that's the other interesting option, is to be the aggregator of enough stuff that you can do it. And as we've hinted at before, we're starting to work on how to collect more materials with a service that gets enough of it together that responsible recyclers are going to be interested in it. The real problem in the American recycling system is that it's dependent entirely on volume, and that volume has been very contaminated. It doesn't end up being particularly productive material. And we're looking at how to get materials from responsible recyclers at home who do the best job of sorting overall, and directly to the right companies to take these materials. So that's the next step at in the Earth911 database, and then with this new service that we're going to launch, is to help people get enough together that they can demand and get responsible recycling for any material. Yeah. And it's amazing what we aren't recycling that we will be able to with just a little bit of additional flexibility in the system.
Yeah, that'll be really exciting to see. I really look forward to that information coming out. Well,
I'd love to be able to say more, but it takes time.
It's still in the works. That's okay. It's worth waiting for. So anything else before we wrap up?
I tell myself that every day.
Every day. It's worth waiting for. You can do it. You don't have to drink your, rain barrel water yet.
No, I'm not dying.
Okay, good. All right. Anything else before we wrap up today, Mitch?
No, check out the iRecycle app. If you haven't, please download it. It's an easy way to find what's available and to recycle in your area. And do keep an eye on the site. There's going to be interesting new announcements about recycling services soon.
Great. Well, that's all for this episode. Thanks for listening to Sustainability in Your Ear. We hope you tune in for all of our sustainability and recycling conversations and some great interviews, too. The show's available on demand on your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and always, you can find us at the Earth911.com website. And if you have any feedback or questions, go to the website or send us an email at feedback@earth911.com. And stay tuned. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.